In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Well, you know that first day at a new school. All right, everybody's been there, right? That new year, the fresh start, finally a chance to not embarrass yourself in front of everyone, or maybe you've been thinking of that someone special that you had your eye on all summer. So picture this. You arrive at the school, and everything is going as planned. Outfit, planned, and executed. Your hair, it's cooperating. Lunch, it's packed, and your mom even sprang for the good stuff, the good snacks. It's like you have thought of everything and given yourself the best chance for an epic start to a new school year. But the second you step through those doors, all that confidence, all that swagger, it just vanishes. Everyone else seems to know exactly where they're going. So why does it seem like you're the only one who doesn't know which classroom is which? You're wandering around like you just landed on a different planet. And then lunch hits. You walk into the cafeteria and it's like a game of musical chairs, except there's no music and way more judgment. You spot an open seat at a table. You sit down and immediately realize why nobody else took that seat. Because every time you shift your weight, the chair makes the most embarrassing sound known to man. Now, in that moment, it feels like the biggest deal in the world. It's as if where you sit right now is going to determine your entire social life forever. And maybe it could, because that random group of people that you end up sitting with, what if they become your friends for the rest of the year? Your new friend group. What if one awkward lunch sitting on one uncomfortably loud chair somehow shaped your entire school year? Okay, it's unlikely, but it's not impossible, am I right? You see, small moments have a way of shaping big outcomes. And that's exactly what we have been talking about these past few weeks in our series called The Sacred Timeline. God's big story and how we fit into it. It all started at creation, but things went horribly wrong when one decision changed the rest of history. But now we're in our final week of our series. All right, we're zooming all the way out and looking into the future. How far? No way to tell, no way to know. Is it tomorrow? Next year? A million years from now? Well, it's impossible to tell. And just like Adam and Eve's decision to eat the fruit changed every single event in human history, there's something coming. Something that hasn't happened yet that will finally make things right forever, for eternity. So, we're looking at the end of the story. And it makes sense that we're going to spend a little time looking at the last few pages of the Bible. Derek doesn't know this, but we're going to hit Revelation tonight, which is found in the back of your Bible, the end book of the Bible. But before we jump in there, there's a few things you need to know about this book, okay? Revelation was written by the Apostle John decades after Jesus' death and resurrection. And if you've read it or tried to read it, then you know that it is filled with visions that John received from God. And these visions, well, they are remarkably vivid, but also incredibly difficult to understand. But here's the thing. Right from the beginning of the book, John made two things very clear. Number one, God is in control. And number two, Jesus is coming back. You see, John wanted his readers, including us, to know that no matter how chaotic things get or they might seem, God's plan is still perfectly on track because we have something incredible to look forward to. And near the end of Revelation, John describes something that's almost impossible to put into words. He's trying to give us a glimpse of what's waiting for us. Heaven, eternity, and the future that God has promised. He's using the best language that he can find, but I think even he would admit that words simply aren't enough to fully capture it. So let's see how he describes it. Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone, and I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Again, anytime we try to use a few short sentences to explain such a massive idea, it's going to leave us with more questions than answers. But ultimately, John's goal was to help us understand what's coming. This is what we look forward to. Right? As hard as life can be right now, as much as we might struggle or suffer, there is a day coming when everything will be made new. Remember in week 2 of our series when we talked about how Adam and Eve's decision to eat the fruit resulted in a broken relationship with God? John is about to tell us what it will look like for that brokenness to be repaired. Check out verse 3. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, "Look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever." God's home will be with his people. Right? It's interesting that we often picture heaven or eternity as somewhere far away, somewhere we go to. But John's vision seems to paint a somewhat different picture. As John saw it, eternity includes God coming to us. And when I hear that, I immediately think back to what it was like in the garden, when God would walk and fellowship with Adam and Eve before the fall. And this idea, it isn't new from John. It's actually been God's heart for his people. Way back in the Old Testament book of Leviticus, I'm sure you've all read that book, right? God described his hope for the future this way. Leviticus chapter 26. He says, I will live among you, and I will not despise you. I will walk among you. I will be your God, and you will be my people. And that's the hope. That's what John is describing, God with us, walking with us, living in a restored creation. And even though there's so much that we still don't fully understand about what's coming, John makes sure we hear this reassurance in Revelation 21 verse 5. And the one sitting on the throne said, "Look, I am making everything new." And then he said to me, "Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true." Everything new. You and me, this world, all of creation. And God tells John, write this down because we need to know what's coming. He wants us all to know what's coming because we need that hope. Now, here's the thing. Revelation can feel overwhelming. It can be really difficult to wrap our heads around everything that John wrote. And honestly, there's so much that we don't know. What will our resurrected bodies be like? How will time work? Will time even exist? What will it actually be like to look at the face of Jesus? Right? We don't have all the answers. But here's what we do know. That there will be a day when God makes everything new. The curse will be broken, creation will be restored, and God will live with his people. And that's not just speculation, that's a promise. And believing that promise could change everything about how we live right now. And believing that promise should change everything about how we live right now. So the question is, what does this mean for all of us? If God is making everything new, if that's really where all of this is headed, then what changes? How does knowing the end of the story shape where we are at right now? Well, here's a few ideas from this passage that might help us answer these questions tonight. The first I have for you is this. Number one, this is a promise, not just wishful thinking. The words John records in Revelation 21 aren't a maybe or a possibility. They're not just a good idea. They're a promise. But what exactly is God promising to do? Well, think about it this way. Have you ever seen one of those room glow-up videos? Y'all know what I'm talking about? It starts with a total mess, clothes everywhere, random junk piled up. Maybe a bed hasn't been made in weeks. Then you watch as they start cleaning, organizing, adding lights, posters, plants, and by the end, it's still the same room, but suddenly it's fresh and inviting. All right, y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, that's a small picture of what God promises for the whole world and for us. His plan is to take everything that's broken, worn out, or messy in our lives and restore it into something new and beautiful. In fact, let's look back at how John recorded the description of this plan. Did you catch this in verse 3? It says, he will live with them. God. They will be his people. God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. Guys, that's where this is headed. And that sounds amazing. But does that mean that we have to wait for things to get better? Absolutely not. Because number two is this. God's plan has already started. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, Pastor Si, one day God is going to fix everything. That's cool. But what about now? What about right here in 2026? What about today when things still feel broken? When I feel broken? Well, here's the thing. God's restoration plan isn't on hold until some future date. It's already in motion, and you can be a part of it. The Apostle Paul explains it this way in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, and a new life has begun. When you follow Jesus, something shifts. God starts reshaping you from the inside out. I personally call it Jesus wrecks your life, okay? Your heart begins to care about what he cares about. Your life starts reflecting his new creation right now. Does that mean that your life suddenly becomes perfect? No. But it does mean that your past no longer has to determine your future. It means that your guilt, your fear, your shame, they begin to be replaced by faith, hope, and love. That incredible future that John wrote about, if we choose to let it, it can start right now in each of our own lives. And each time that we choose to embrace forgiveness over bitterness, acceptance over intolerance, and love over hate, we are giving the world a preview of what's to come. We're showing them what God's restored creation will be like. God's plan isn't just something that we're sitting around waiting for. It's something that we get to participate in starting today. But let's be completely honest with each other. Those choices, they aren't always easy, are they? Thankfully, this passage also shows us that number 3, knowing the future gives us hope for today. When you know how the story ends, it changes how you handle the middle. Okay, if you thought the past was as good as it gets, you will spend all of your energy trying to hold on to what's slipping away. But when you know that the best is still ahead, you can hold on to things more loosely. Your status, your stuff, even your struggles. Think about it like this. If you had tickets to see your absolute favorite artist tomorrow night, would you let a red light or spilled coffee or a bad grade tomorrow morning ruin your entire day? Probably not. You would keep that concert in mind and think, this difficult moment, it's only temporary. Tonight is going to be incredible. Tonight is what I am looking forward to. Guys, that's what knowing what God's promise does. It doesn't erase the hard stuff, but it puts it into perspective. Every time you choose forgiveness when bitterness feels easier, every time you show love when hate seems justified, every time you trust God when everything feels uncertain, you are living like someone who knows how the story ends. And Paul put it this way in his letter to the Roman church in Romans chapter 8. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Make no mistake, what Paul wrote, that suffering that Paul wrote about, was very real. Following Jesus is not easy and often involves making significant sacrifices. For Paul, for him, that meant he was thrown in prison. For us, right now we don't have that fear, but it might be standing up for what's right even when we're standing alone, or choosing to be kind rather than get even. But remember, you're not just sacrificing because you hope things will work out someday. You're choosing forgiveness, love, and hope because you know where this is all headed. And that changes everything. So what now? If God really is making everything new, and if we want to change how we live today, what can we do? How do we respond to God's message? So here are 3 ways to challenge you to apply this to your lives today. And they're super simple. Number 1 is this. Look for moments that point toward eternity. I want to challenge you to look for hints of God's kingdom breaking through in our world. Now, I can't guarantee that you will see a new heaven and a new earth like John did, but if you are willing to slow down and be patient, I think that you will start to see the little hints that you might have missed otherwise. It might be when someone forgives you when you messed up, or when you help someone unexpectedly and their face just lights up, or when You're hanging out with your friends and you realize how awesome it feels to know that you are accepted. It might take some practice. It might take some time. But over time, you will start to see those moments as just another way that God is giving you a taste of what's in store. And here's the challenge. Make a list of those moments and add at least one thing to it every day. But don't just write the sunset. Write something like the way the sun or the sky lit up with orange and gold, making me think about how creative God is. You'll have reminders that eternity isn't as far away as it feels. You want to take it a step further? You could even make a list as a group. Say, share a group text where everyone shares what they have for a moment for each day for the whole week. And then as you notice these glimpses, the next step is to make sure that you don't forget about these when life gets loud. Which leads us to number 2, is to write a letter to your future self. Now, you might laugh at this. And you might think that you'll always remember what God has shown you or is doing in your life right now. But we all know that life has a way of burying things under homework, friendships, and whatever's on Netflix. That's why I want to encourage you to capture them in a way your future self can ignore. All right, take 15 minutes, let's say, and write a letter to yourself. The version of you 6 months from now. Write about 1 or 2 things that God is doing in you or around you. And be sure to tell yourself why those moments mattered and how they remind you that God is constantly working to bring us closer to Him. Now, you can write it on paper. You can put it in your notes app, or if you want to even get more creative, you can use a site like futureme.org to automatically email it to yourself in the future. But you're probably sitting there going, why bother? Well, it's because there's a really good chance that your future self will have days where they wonder if God's promises are real. And your own words might just be your own powerful reminder that you'll need. Noticing and remembering are great, but they're not the end goal. God is actually calling us to actively participate in making our world better, more like what we will experience in eternity. Which brings us to the final challenge tonight. Number 3 is this: give your world a preview of what's to come. If God's plan is for His children to experience eternity without loneliness, fear, or hate, what's stopping us from helping our world catch glimpses of that eternity right now? Nothing. Except you. You have to respond to the message. And you can start today. Maybe it's inviting the new kid to sit with you at lunch. Maybe it's sending an encouraging text to someone you know who has been struggling, or maybe it's apologizing when you know you were wrong. Here's the question to ask yourself. If I really believed that eternity was real, how would I treat this person or respond in that situation? Then you go and do that thing. And I'm not talking about something generic like, I guess I could have been nicer. I mean something like, instead of joining in when my friends were making fun of that person, I could have stood up for that person. And I'm not saying that doing the right thing is easy. Sometimes it comes at a real and often significant cost. But I'm saying that it's the choice we should make. And I know it's true because it's the choice Jesus made for us. We started this series at creation. We watched as sin broke everything. We saw God call people to be a part of His rescue plan. And now we have seen where it's headed. A restored creation where God lives with his people forever. Let's thank God that our story only gets better from here.